Lakers got a strong performance from LeBron James in a 17-point win over Portland. LeBron had 31 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Lakers are 6-2 in their last 8 games. The Clippers lose by 13 at Utah. The anti-Semitic documentary that got Kyrie Irving in trouble is still available on Amazon. Despite public pressure, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said he is not removing the controversial film from the company's website. Rams defensive end Aaron Donald has a high ankle sprain and will not play in Sunday's home game against Seattle. This will be the first game Donald has missed due to an injury in his 9-year career. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call me your MVP.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The 3 people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. Four racial arsonists set LA City Hall on fire. And everybody is running out of the building straight to KBLA Talk 1580.
I am pleased to welcome LA City Councilman Mike Bonin to this program. Councilman, how are you, sir?
Hello. Thank you, Tavis.
Councilmember Curran Price, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
I'm well, Tavis. Thank you. Good to be with you and your listeners.
I'm pleased to have LA City Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez on this program. How are you today, ma'am?
Good morning, Tavis.
Councilman O'Farrell, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Tavis. So glad to join you this morning.
Councilman Koretz, welcome to this program, sir. How are you?
I'm honored to be on your show. Still in shock from the events of the last few days.
Marquise Harris Dawson, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique, and good morning to the KBLA family.
Councilmember Heather Hutt, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique.
I am pleased to welcome the new president of the LA City Council, Paul Kokoy. Mr. President, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Tavis. I'm well. Thank you very much.
Holding all politicians accountable to you. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Way down yonder, where the stallion awaits, a battalion of thunder is dragging my fate. It feels like the other side of love. Everything feels numb. Way down.
KBLA Talk 1580. Dominique DiPrima. Really looking forward to our daily deep dive today with director, producer, native New Yorker Sacha Jenkins. He is a hip-hop pioneer. Started his first magazine as a teenager, Graphic Scenes and Explicit Language. It was about the graffiti subculture. He was co-founder of Beat Down, the first ever hip-hop newspaper. What you're hearing right there is his band, the 1865. I should say one of the bands he works with. He's also worked with Vibe Magazine as a writer and music editor, and writing articles on artists like Puffy and Bone, Thugs and Harmony. Also, his first feature-length documentary, Fresh Dress, tells the tale of hip-hop fashion, but he has a long list of projects that he's worked on as a director and producer since that time. Very prolific, by the way. Sacha Jenkins, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm hearing the music that sounds familiar to me. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? What's happening?
What is happening? Yeah, well, I mean, introducing you, writer, producer, director, hip hop pioneer. Some people might be a little confused hearing the 1865. You want to talk about that music we just heard?
Well, I'm black, right? And rock and roll is my birthright. So it shouldn't be weird. It should be very like, oh, the brother's playing some rock and roll because we helped create it. And always been a fan of rock and roll, and sometimes I make it.
Yeah. Well, no, I think maybe I feel you because I think from what I read about you, one of the things that you talk about is these artificial sort of borders or, I guess borders or lanes that we have as artists, as musicians, as writers, particularly as black people. So I get that. But I was thinking confused in terms of like, but he's a director, producer. Why are we playing music?
It's all writing. For me, it's starting out as a writer. And before that, we call ourselves graffiti writers. The idea of writing has just been in my brain since I was a kid. And obviously something you can relate to. My father was a filmmaker himself. So the arts, and, my mom's a painter. So the arts in my family is very natural for me to want to use different mediums to express myself.
Yeah, of course it is. And I think the sort of prolificness of a lot of people that were in the cutting edge of hip hop as you were and continue to be is remarkable. And I don't think, even though we know that kind of hip hop culture is this dominant world force right now, I don't think people know how many folks that you might see in another aspect, as whether it be a rock band or directing a film about Louis Armstrong, hail to the creative force of nature that is, the hip hop nation.
Well, hip hop to me is all it is the idea of around creativity. It's having the ability to. Hip hop is seeing things where you don't see yourself. And instigating yourself, putting yourself in these situations where you weren't invited to the party. Whether it's fashion, we see things that weren't made for us, and assign a new value to it, and make it even more special than it was even intended. We spray paint, as a tool. We made it an instrument. It became something you use to create art, not just to paint your red wagon. So hip hop to me is just the ability to, rebrand yourself. I mean, my last name is Jenkins, but that comes from Wales. It doesn't come from Africa. And with hip hop, you have the ability to rename yourself and have ownership over your identity. And I think that's why it's so powerful. And you can take that identity anywhere you want to take it.
Yeah.
Because you own it.
I mean, your reference to sort of hip hop and also black people in general, sort of forced entrance into the world of fashion. I guess Fresh Dress back in 2015 is probably your first, major film. And we see it still. I mean, I'm looking at what's happening with Ye and the whole, controversy around Balenciaga and how it's like he helped elevate them in a way and then gets thrown under the bus, and now they step in it with this controversy around child pornography, but everyone sort of gives them a pass. So it's what I'm seeing reminds me of like everybody wants to be black until the police show up.
Yes, how close can you get to the fire without getting burned? You want to feel the heat, you want the warmth, but you don't want to get burnt. I mean, that's just nothing new. It's always been that way. How can you extract the heat without getting burned?
Yeah, and I think it's for younger folks that are fans of hip hop or people that are casual observers, they may not realize that what we think of as normal, A$AP Rocky and Rihanna being these, high fashion icons or whatever, that wasn't normal. When you were, clocking the spray can art all over New York and understanding that as art rather than vandalism. At that time, we weren't welcome. Not only were we not welcome, we were adamantly unwelcome in those high fashion spaces.
Right. Well, now they need us desperately because, their game of checkers has expired, and we bring that chess. We bring value. These things are just items that people wore. We personified these items because we applied our mojo to it and made them even, just the even if we're not designing it, if we're touching it, if we're saying it's special, it takes on a whole new personality. If we just say it's cool, it has a whole new value assignment. And that's what we do.
Sacha Jenkins is my guest. You're welcome to get in on this conversation. We do have a lot to talk about the new film, but I'm also really, really interested in the way you weave together all of these different worlds that you're part of: music, writing for print, writing for the screen, and politics. Yes, it's all together in the work. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
Courage is contagious. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Over 100 million people around the world have felt the thrill of Broadway's most spectacular musical, Disney's The Lion King. And now you can too. Experience this breathtaking theatrical event and see why the New York Times declares there is simply nothing else like it.
Give the gift that roars at the Pantages Theater, February 2nd through March 26th. Visit BroadwayInHollywood.com.
According to the National Black Justice Institute, a majority of Black LGBTQ plus students experience harassment in school because of their sexual orientation, gender expression, and racial identity. This reality is compounded by the fact there are few safe, affirming spaces for Black LGBTQ plus middle and high school youth in our communities. On December 3rd, 2022, African American LGBTQ plus youth from the ages 14 to 18 are invited to participate in a fun and culturally enriching youth retreat at the Stone View Nature Center in Culver City from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The event will focus on mental health, social justice leadership, safe space creation, yoga, music, drumming, and art making. Breakfast, lunch, and gift items will be provided to all youth participants. For more information, check out the event website at womensleadershipla.org or call 323-304-9578.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
It's pro time because at Lowe's, it's Provember. Save big with inventory you can count on, like Flex products or DeWalt power tools starting at just $99. Plus, Lowe's MVPs members earn up to 3 times bonus points per dollar on select items. Save all Provember long. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. MVP's Pro Rewards Program terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/L/Pro Loyalty terms. Subject to change. Prices valid from 10/17/22 to 2/3/23 or until supplies last.
Smooth skin begins with hydrating ingredients. Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion nourishes your skin with all-day hydration for deeply moisturized results that give you confidence like buttery soft shoulders like and visibly smooth skin like. Quench your skin with nourishing moisture from Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion. Try Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash too and get skin your face will envy.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Right. So we're talking with Sacha Jenkins, director, producer, writer, band leader, dad. So we talked about Fresh Dressed, his first feature-length documentary, and I guarantee you, if you haven't seen that, if you haven't seen his latest, the piece on Louis Armstrong, you've seen his work for sure. Fresh Dressed premiered at Sundance, the film festival, and then, which is a big deal in itself. And then your next movie, Burn, M.F. Burn, can't say the full name on terrestrial radio, is about the civil unrest in Los Angeles, the rebellions of 1965 in 1992. Seems like a pivot, maybe not. What led you there?
I mean, it's all the same story. I mean, I got asked, you did the Wu-Tang documentary and Rick James, how could you do Louis Armstrong? It feels like a pivot. It's like, well, no, it's not, because it's the same story over and over again. Louis Armstrong caught a gun charge at 14. Come to New York City right now. There are lots of kids at 14 catching gun charges. Rick James, had troubles with the law. RZA was facing an attempted murder charge before Wu-Tang really hit. He could have been in jail for a long time. Black music is a reflection of and reaction to the environment. The civil unrest in Los Angeles is a reflection of and reaction to the environment with black folks. So to me, I don't want to say I'm telling the same story every time, but there are some consistencies that America fails to face. So it's not really surprising when it happens in 65 and it happens in 92. It's like a volcano. A volcano erupts, and there's a quiet period, and then it comes back again. It's just only natural that's going to happen.
Right. And during that quiet period, pressure is building.
Totally.
I think that makes sense. I've never looked at, and as you point out, it's probably because of my upbringing, my parents both being artists who are activists, is I've never looked at artists separate from politics.
Right. Well, people who sell you things want to keep art and politics separate, but when you're of color in America, it's impossible for it to be separate, in my opinion. Yeah. It's not possible.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about that. What do you mean when you say that?
I mean, again, going back to the idea of black art being a reflection of and reaction to the environment. I mean, unless you're the son of a really rich rapper and you grew up in the Hollywood Hills and, everything has just been really fine for you in your life, and you've got blinders on, I don't know how you can be of color and or black making art and separate the art that you make from politics. I mean, maybe folks don't want to talk about politics, or some artists say, look, I'm an artist and my art speaks for my politics, and that's fine. And that goes to the whole conversation around Louis Armstrong, right? Louis Armstrong was the first of many firsts as a black man. And, I don't know that he woke up one day and said, I want to be an activist. He wanted to be an artist. But in the process of doing his art, many people felt like he didn't care or he wasn't involved, wasn't down for the cause. But when you look at it, he's getting booked at all these fancy white establishments, and he says to these folks, it's really nice that you like me, I appreciate it, but you know what, if I can't stay here, I can't play here. So that forces their hand, and he's got to stay there, and eventually other people like him have to stay there too. So folks might not have seen that as activism at the time, but it was. And again, Armstrong didn't wake up saying, I want to be an activist, but in many ways, he couldn't separate his art from politics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and not only is it activism, it's actually at risk to his music and personal safety.
Yes, and by the time civil rights is happening, he's a much older gentleman.
Right.
And so, he's not necessarily, you don't want your great uncle or your grandfather out in the streets either, But no one's thinking that at that time.
Yeah.
Your boy, Sammy Davis Jr., tried to come at him like, what are you doing? It's like Sammy Davis Jr., of all people, should not have come at Louis Armstrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're familiar with my father's writings on Sammy Davis Jr., I'm sure. So Sammy Davis was coming at Louis Armstrong, and Amiri Baraka was coming at Sammy Davis. But I think some of it is also, it sounds like this thing we have a tendency to do, which is judge things back then from where we are now, right?
Right. But in this case, I think judging back then now is doing good for Armstrong, because for the longest he was misunderstood, and for the longest he was considered an Uncle Tom or a sellout.
Yeah.
When the truth couldn't be any further from that.
It's also interesting. I mean, if you look at it in the context of today or hip hop or anything, anything in entertainment, it's never. Well, I shouldn't say never. It's often not the ones that are steadily positioning themselves as being these big activists that are the ones doing the most real work. Real investment in the movement, real work for change. I mean, I find that, Aretha Franklin's another example of that. She didn't have that big image, but if you look behind the scenes, she was constantly funding the movement and encouraging and showing up and singing. And so I think, to me, it's instructive for today, because a lot of times the ones that, and I find this out because I am working with them on some level, the ones that are putting themselves out there as being these big activists are not always the ones really doing the work.
No, they're not. And I sometimes think, in the case of some popular artists today, if you're an artist who's got to tell people that you're a genius, then you're not really a genius. And Armstrong never tell people he was a genius. It's kind of ridiculous, like me saying, I'm sorry, I'm a genius. I'm a genius, yo. Word up. The way I design clothing just makes me a genius. Look at it. Because I'm a genius because it sells a lot. That makes me genius. No, that makes you a great business person with business ideas that can be exploited. And when they're done with you, they'll let you know that they're done with you in very extreme ways.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, we can go down that path. What you're saying makes sense. Others would say, well, that's just part of a marketing plan, or it's part of a staying relevant plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's most relevant is staying healthy. You know what I mean? If you can't be healthy, the money doesn't mean anything. And then when I say healthy, I'm also speaking mental health. If your mental health is not in order, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. You could be bankrupt in the mind,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Mind, body, spirit is healthy. That's holistically healthy. And I agree, because it's one of my things that I always complain about is people doing stupid, irrelevant, terrible things in the quest to stay relevant rather than just doing the work and hoping that that's enough.
Well, everyone has their time, It's very few artists have the ability. Like Nas is someone who, I know Nas. We grew up in the same neighborhood.
He's your partner.
I mean, the guy,
he's
our partner. But the guy is 49. He just doesn't age for whatever reason, right? That's him. Not everyone is Nas. Not everyone can still put out music 25 years later and remain relevant. You've got to understand your time and place. And sometimes it's okay to not be relevant. You had your time of being relevant. Everyone wants to be relevant for forever, and that's just not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, right. And Nas is, known for his intellect, right? And for it's different than being known for something more less durable. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think you'll probably be relevant forever because you're a writer and you create your own vehicles and you rely on your brain. That's really your big thing is your creativity in your mind, as opposed to look how I look, or look how I twerk, or look how I design something trendy.
Right, but there's always gravity. Right now, people seem to really like this Armstrong film, which is great. I love it. and more doors will open. But who knows how long that will last. And my philosophy is, with every project, I've got to pretend like it might be the last one, and I try to say as much as I can when I have the platform.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this piece, because I do think a lot of times I'm out here on the West Coast, and I can tell from, all your stuff is East Coast oriented, even though it's for everybody. How do you get those chances? Because I feel like people do in Hollywood and in entertainment, they do want to put you in a lane. Oh, you're rock, you're rap, you're a director, you're a producer, you're a writer. Oh, you write for Vibe. How can you become a film director? And oh, you do hip hop. How can you do, Louis Armstrong? How did you get that chance, or how did that chance get you?
I've always insisted on people understanding that I have a diverse range of interests. I mean, white people all the time get offered to make films about anyone black. White people might get the offer, but I might not get the offer to do the Neil Young film. But let me tell you something. If I made a Neil Young film, it would be the best Neil Young film you'll ever see, because I know a lot about Neil Young and I'm a huge fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is with us, it's like, I started to feel a way like, you want me to just do black stuff. But at the end of the day, I realized that A, black people are just extremely interesting, and B, we need more people like us telling our stories, because when other people tell them, they get it wrong. And I get it wrong too. I'm not perfect. Like when I did Burn MF or Burn, you said East Coast. Like, yeah, I'm just going to Florence and Normandy, not understanding that in LA, if you don't talk to the big homies, you're going to have a problem. So I'm on Florence and Normandy with this white journalist who got beat up during the 92 uprising, kind of going over everything. And then older brother walks by and looks at me, and then he goes to my producer, who happens to be a black woman. So she's talking to him something, and everything's okay. 5 minutes later, we're swarmed by like 25 guys, 25 homies. And they're like, yo, fool, what you doing out here? And I'm like, hey, I'm a black filmmaker just trying to make this film. Like, you can't just come here and show up. And I said, look, man, I'm not trying to disrespect you guys. I did a film recently called Fresh Dress. So, oh, wait, you did Fresh Dress? All right, you cool. So I got a pass that one time, but I learned in that situation, and I'm speaking to people in Los Angeles right now, I understand your city now. I can't just show up in the hood without a pass from somebody. So you learn. You learn, and I don't always get it right. But when we're making our own films, we have a better shot of getting more right. But we're not always going to get it 100% right.
Talking with Sacha Jenkins. His newest is about Louis Armstrong. Want to talk about that, where you can see it, what he found on that journey that he wasn't expecting. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where we're amplifying black and progressive voices 24/7.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. African-American Darrell Brooks Jr. is appealing his conviction in the Waukesha, Wisconsin Christmas parade case. Brooks filed a notice of appeal Tuesday asking for help from the Public Defender's Office. In his trial, Brooks defended himself. In his note, Brooks said he didn't want to cause controversy but mentioned clear issues of the law and legal facts in the case. In Idaho, investigators now say they're not sure if 4 University of Idaho students who were murdered were targeted. 10 days after the November 13th murders, Moscow Police Captain Roger Lanier said during a press conference that cops believed from the beginning that it was a targeted attack. Now, Moscow, Idaho police say the students and home might not have been specifically targeted. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
CHP working a crash in Long Beach. Carpool lane is blocked right now, 405 northbound near the 710, and that's why you're stop and go from Long Beach Boulevard. Watch for a vehicle stalled in Downey on the 5 northbound past Lawrence Avenue. They're getting ready to move that out of the right-hand lane. And we did have a vehicle stalled in Anaheim on the 5 southbound for Harbor Boulevard. They got that pushed to the shoulder right now. Delays from Brooker Street are starting to thin out. Got a problem in Mission Viejo on the 5 northbound for Avery Parkway. Got a vehicle stalled on the center divider, but they want to move that to the shoulder.
Need an accident attorney by your side. All you got to do go. It's called the Accident Guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? The Accident Guys have helped over 5,000 injured clients with an impressive winning record.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers got a strong performance from LeBron James in a 17-point win over Portland. LeBron had 31 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Lakers are 6-2 in their last 8 games. The Clippers lose by 13 at Utah. The anti-Semitic documentary that got Kyrie Irving in trouble is still available on Amazon. Despite public pressure, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said he is not removing the controversial film from the company's website. Rams defensive end Aaron Donald has a high ankle sprain and will not play in Sunday's home game against Seattle. This will be the first game Donald has missed due to an injury in his 9-year career. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week, LA County Department of Children and Family Services. LA County Department of Children and Family Services promotes child safety and well-being by partnering with communities to strengthen family. Congratulations, LA County DCFS.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Hi, this is Stevie Wonder, and nothing can stop this love. It's back. Join me at my 24th House Full of Toys benefit concert, Saturday, December 17th at the Microsoft Theater.
Please bring an unwrapped toy.
Or a gift of joy, and make this a day of giving to the young and old.
Stevie Wonder.
My 24th House Full of Toys benefit concert.
Tickets on sale now at AXS.com.
Produced by Wonder Productions and promoted by AEG.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stop the violence. Increase the Peace Foundation is a non-profit community-based organization dedicated to fostering peace while mitigating violence in our society. Established in 1993, Stop the Violence, Increase the Peace has provided a wide variety of assistance to thousands of youth, families, and victims of violence over the past 3 decades, including intervention services, conflict and dispute resolution training, grief counseling, and victims advocacy. In addition, the foundation offers an array of classes focused on anger management, domestic violence, parenting, substance abuse, and more. To make a donation or to access services, call 323-445-8620. That's 323-445-8620 or visit www.increasethepeacefoundation.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And I just want to give you a community call to action, a community call to celebration from KBLA Talk 1580. If you want to be a vendor for our Welcome Home Mayor-elect Karen Bass event, it's in historic Leimert Park, Africatown, USA. It's Saturday, December 10th. Join the celebration and join as a vendor. You can email us to info@smileyAudiomedia.com. We'll get you all the details you need. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com. You'll get all the info on how to join us as a vendor at our Welcome Home Mayor-elect Karen Bass event. It's Saturday, December 10th. I'll see you there in Leimert Park. This, a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. Continuing our conversation with Sacha Jenkins, director, producer. His latest film, Louis Armstrong's Black and Blues, is now streaming on Apple TV Plus. And, we talked a little bit. I heard the interview that you did with Tavis, my colleague. It was great. Very focused, deep dive on Armstrong. I really enjoyed that. But as a hip hop kid, I just also very very impressed by your long and wide portfolio in the hip hop world. But this film, as you say, is being really well received, and it sounded like it was a journey for you. Of having respect and love for all music, having respect and love for Armstrong, but really being a journey of discovery, musically, politically, and elsewhere. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, for me, in my career, I found that some of my best stories were the groups or folks I knew very little about. Bone Thugs and Harmony, for instance. I didn't know much about Bone Thugs and Harmony, if anything at all, being an East Coast guy. And I got to get with them very early in their career and go back to Cleveland with them. And I'd never been to Cleveland, and to be in Bone Thugs' Cleveland in, 94 was just eye-opening. And with Armstrong, I knew a little bit about Armstrong. I knew what your average black kid in New York City knew. I knew he had hits. I knew that there was a local elementary school named after him. And I knew my grandparents really liked his music, and they played his music in their house in Philadelphia. But I really didn't know much. And so when I started to learn about it, and being a child of Public Enemy, not that Public Enemy, and I ran to Chuck D recently, he said, well, I always knew Louis Armstrong was the man. I was like, all right, I'm not saying I didn't know he was the man, but his mannerisms and how he carried himself and how older people told me about him when I was very impressionable in my sort of black consciousness phase in my teens, Armstrong just felt like someone I couldn't get with, I couldn't relate to. But when I did the research and learned about who he was and what he was about, and when you hear these tapes, he made these tapes at home, at a reel-to-reel recorder where he taped conversations with friends, with his wife, with himself. He took this machine on the road. He's got years and years of tape of conversations, and so that's the spine and backbone of the film. And so when you hear Armstrong in his own voice say, "When the F have I ever Uncle Tom?" And you think about it, like, wow, when actually has he? And you hear that he's a human being. You hear that he sounds like somebody you know. I used Nas to be the voice of Armstrong in certain cases in the film. And people were like, well, why Nas? And I said, well, Armstrong reminded me of a lot of people I grew up with. He's funny, he's smart, he's creative, he's got big ideas, but he doesn't have social capital. All he has is his talent. And there were so many of us who were like that, and so many of us who didn't make it, but there's always one person who does. And in my neighborhood, Nas was that person. He was that Louis Armstrong whose voice would travel the world and inspire people everywhere. And, Nas is a funny guy, and he is a stylish guy, and he is an average guy, too. And so when you hear these tapes, you hear that Armstrong is an extraordinarily average guy in some regards, but also just extraordinary as a person. And it's just really inspiring to hear that. And, by the end of the film, because a lot of it is in his voice, you really feel like you know this guy. There have been some people who have said, some critics, oh, there's not enough music journalism. But my answer is, in order to understand the music, you've got to understand the man. And it goes back to my theory about black music being a reflection of and a reaction to the environment. And you can do all this math and all this science and sort of break down his solos and do all these things. But unless you really know who he was, I feel like your scholarship is moot in some regards. And so hopefully my film, for those people who really want to get really deep into his solos and all his musical innovations, not that you don't learn about that in my film, but if you want to go really deep, maybe hopefully my film is a primer to set the stage. But I wanted people to really know who this man was, and I think we achieved that.
Mm. And you've been quoted saying that you don't believe in genres of music.
Not with black people, because again, Rick James, Louis Armstrong, Nas, it's the same guy. It's the same environment.
Right.
Same experiences with police. Same experiences with educational system. Nas dropped out in the 9th grade. Can you believe that? And we had the same guidance counselors tell us the same thing. They told Nas, you know what? You should go to vocational school. And on one hand, there's nothing wrong with vocational school, and it's absolutely right. Maybe they felt like that's all there was for us, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a solid living. You can provide for your family. You can do well coming out of vocational school. But what if Nas went to vocational school? Maybe he'd be rapping on the weekends. There was no aspiration for us. We just had babysitters in New York City public schools. So they just, fed us baby food and gave us opportunities that they felt we can handle, but never inspired us or pushed us to go beyond. And Louis Armstrong and Nas are two people who come from environments where there's not much expectation of any of us, and they went beyond that.
Yeah. It happens so much that way. It happens so much that way. I remember having a teacher tell me I should look into something other than entertainment. Entertainment wasn't for me. You just never know. But I do. You do have a long-term partnership with Nas. You actually, your company Mass Appeal, he's a partner with you in that venture. And Mass Appeal is like a lot of things, right? I mean, it's you could say creative content creators, a music company, marketing. How do you, if you have your elevator version of Mass Appeal? I mean, you can go on the website and read for half an hour, but how do you describe it?
Yeah, I think we help. We help bridge people to stories, and we help bridge stories to people. I think you can do that through marketing, you can do that through film and television, and you can actually do that through music. And we, sometimes there are synergies between all three of those things inside of the company, and sometimes they operate independent of one another. But either way, it's all somehow storytelling one way or another, and we try to sharpen our storytelling skills the best way we know how.
Right, and I just want to say that because when I say, oh, Nas is your partner, I'm not talking about just like your buddy from way back. He's literally your partner in a firm called Mass Appeal. If you guys want to find out more, go to massappeal.com. Talking with Sacha Jenkins, and some folks want to holler at you. We got a lot to talk about. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
3 Bay Area counties have black women chief prosecutors. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Civil rights attorney Pamela Price made history when she was elected Alameda County's first African-American district attorney. Price joins 2 other black women, Contra Costa County DA Diana Becton and San Francisco DA Brooke Jenkins, holding the same office in their Bay Area counties. Price is the 5th black woman to be elected district attorney in California. Former DAs on the list are Vice President Kamala Harris, who was San Francisco's DA from 2004 to 2010, and Jackie Lacey, who was Los Angeles County's DA for 2 terms from 2012 to 2020. KBLA listeners, what are your thoughts on these offices being held by black women? Let us know on all social media platforms at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
On Saturday, December 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., come out and enjoy a free community health fair, co-sponsored by Pleasant Hill Baptist Church Health Ministry and the Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. The fair will be held on the church grounds at 2009 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, with free health screenings, refreshments, jumpers for the kids, a visit from Santa, entertainment with a DJ, free food giveaway for the first 100 people who attend, as well as raffles and other prizes. There will also be open enrollment, health insurance representatives present. Attendees can get free blood pressure, glucose, HIV and STD testing, a dental screening, fluoride varnish, COVID testing, vaccines and boosters. Flu shots will also be offered. Housing navigation, mental health support, and education services will be available. Don't miss this free community health fair. Tell somebody and receive the gift of preventative health services this season. See you all on Saturday, December 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 2009 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Los Angeles.
Health is Wealth and Medicare and Covered California's open enrollment for medical insurance is here. RHJ Insurance Agency can help you find affordable rates and the plan that's just right for you and your family. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote. Don't leave your health to chance. Open enrollment is here and affordable coverage is just a phone call away. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote and get the coverage you need. Go to www.rhjins.com.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Couldn't have put it better myself. It's KBLA Talk 1580. And we're talking with director, writer, producer. And when I say writer, I'm talking about writing these films, but also writing articles, magazines, and also being part of a culture. And I just spoke about mass appeal. I was reading reviews of your work on IMDb, and somebody was complaining about the graffiti writing, that this is promoting crime, and I was laughing to myself because I thought we were done with that argument. I thought we finished that argument in the 90s, but apparently not. That folks are still, and I guess there is a difference. In regionally, because some places like here in LA, they're just gang tagging. But I guess the question is when do we get to be labeled art, and and who decides what is art?
Well, it's always coming from a place of self-expression. So people are going to do it. I mean, graffiti is something that's been around since the beginning of time. People have colored it up. You know what I mean? It's a natural instinct. You can wander the deserts of America and see, native, graffiti from thousands of years ago. So whether it's art or not, I think it only matters if you want to make some money. If you want to make some money, you want that blue stamp that you get from Twitter on your art that says it's art, so then you can make some money. But graffiti was something that kids did. Just like hip-hop, it's an art form made by kids. And kids were just trying to express themselves and communicate with other kids, and it stuck around, and some of these kids continue to do it into their adulthood and became fine artists. I mean, I know so many artists who come from that tradition who are now extremely famous and extremely wealthy. So some people their art has been deemed art, and others not yet. But who cares,
Well, yeah, you only matters when you're trying to stay out of jail for, being a so-called vandal. I mean, I grew up in the Bay, graffiti being a huge thing there, and a lot of great, great artists and crews there. So I maybe had a different orientation. We got a couple folks want to holler at you, if you don't mind, Sacha, before we run out of time here.
Sure.
Let's go to Kwamel calling us from Gardena. Hi, Kwamel.
Hello. First off, since we're talking hip-hop right now, rest in power again to Don Newkirk, who you may remember from the Third Base Gas Face video, and the De La Soul album, 3 Feet High and Rising. He passed around the same time as Irene Cara. Now to the question. Both of you being hip-hop involved folks, it occurred to me yesterday that things are being called hip-hop that are not calling themselves hip-hop. You know what I mean? Like the music, some of the fashion. These things are not, or the people that are creating it are not considering themselves hip-hop people. And I consider that a particular difference because I don't sense a B-boy, B-girl feel to any of that. So I was wondering how both of you reconcile that and whether you still call it hip-hop or not. And I'll take your comments off the air.
Thanks, Kwamel. I'll defer to you on this, Sacha. I just look at it as people making money, kind of like what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like a spiritual consciousness, right? If you want to call yourself hip-hop and you feel aligned to the traditions of hip-hop, that's cool. And then there might be some younger folks, drill music and other forms of music that don't necessarily feel a kinship with hip-hop, even though it might have come from the rib of hip-hop or whatever. They don't feel a kinship and they want to feel like they're doing something different. I say God bless to them. I just, it's being a hip hop police is a tough job, and
it's not a job I want.
Yeah, it's different things to different people. I feel like graffiti, for instance, graffiti technically predates quote unquote hip hop music, and there are a lot of graffiti artists, older artists, some of them black, some of them white, who are like, I was writing graffiti in 1972. I have no connection to hip hop. My graffiti has nothing to do with hip hop. But there are kids who grew up with hip hop, and their hip hop included graffiti. So to them, I say graffiti is hip hop to them, and to Blade, who's a legendary graffiti artist who started writing in 1972, hip hop and graffiti are not the same thing. So I think it's a la carte in many ways and how you see it, and hopefully people will continue to see it. But just like other forms, blues, jazz, it's always going to be around. And hip hop's turning 50 next year, but I don't know. I don't want to be the hip hop police out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And there's something to the fact that the culture of hip hop is always, evolved and adapted to the conditions, just like, you say about the individual artists. I mean, I remember back in the day, it was the question I always got was, when is this hip hop trend going away? Because I used to host a show called Home Turf, and the executives were always like, well, is this going out next season? And and I always thought it would be around, but then the way that hip hop always adapts, it can be a different musical sound. It could have a different message. It would be impossible to me, and to your point, to be the hip hop police, the art police. I'll continue our conversation with Sacha Jenkins when we come forward. We have just a few minutes before we hand off to Tavis Smiley, who is up next. But I want to make sure we remind you about his latest project, about Louis Armstrong, and maybe we can squeeze in Randy's question real quick. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours, now through December 20th. All of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
All right, Randy, I'm giving you 20 seconds to ask your question to director-producer Sacha Jenkins. Go ahead.
I think you're the right person for a project that I think needs to be done. I'm actually a vice president of the Brotherhood of Street Racers, and I think it's time for us to do a movie about the Brotherhood of Street Racers and Big Willie and Tamiko. You can Google it. I'll leave my number with Miles if you're interested, you'll have my number, and we'll get back and get deeper into it. But that was quite a part of our history in Los Angeles.
All right. Thank you for that. He's got a project for you, Sacha.
Hey, that's nice.
L.A. style, you know. Just like Florence and Normandy, we're right here on Crenshaw and Vernon. So, yeah, you're in the heart of L.A. Right now. Louis Armstrong's Black and Blues is now streaming on Apple TV+. We got a couple minutes left before we pivot to the next show. What would you like to leave us with this morning?
Well, I think you're all lucky to have Karen Bass about to step into the
yes.
The batter's box. I interviewed her for my film Burn, MF Burn, and she was just phenomenal. It's really exciting. I mean, I'm in New York, but I come out there all the time, so I think it's a special thing you all have her in the leadership position. So congratulations to Los Angeles. I'd like to say that.
Yeah, we worked hard to make that happen, and happen it did, in spite of $105 million, a national record being spent to take her down. You got another minute. You want to say something about your film?
Louis Armstrong's Black and Blues. Black and Blue is a song that he performs at the very top of the film, and it really speaks to the thesis of the film. You know, the refrain in the song is, "My only sin is in my skin." And Louis Armstrong was dealing with America's sins when it comes to race and color his entire life, but it didn't stop him from being the man. And I challenge you to find anyone who was as cool as him. He could play his instrument, he could sing, he was funny, he could dress. He's a fine artist. He's just an amazing cat. And I didn't know much about him. Now I know a lot, and I'll tell you, there's no one cooler than him, living or not living. He's just a really special person, a very big presence.
Big words coming from you, because you've been around and worked with a lot of really, really cool people in your life.
I have, but I think Louis Armstrong might actually be the coolest.
Wow, that's dope. Well, Sacha Jenkins, I encourage everyone to check that out, and also just look at your portfolio. If they probably have already. As you mentioned, whether it's the Wu-Tang piece, the Rick James piece, or Burn, MF Burn, they've seen some of your work, and certainly the latest should be no exception. I appreciate you joining us today. You want to let people know how they can keep up with you?
You know, I don't do social media, so you keep up with me by tuning in to some stuff that might come out here and there. But
it's true, you don't. I was looking at your band online, and I was like, okay, been a minute. But some interesting stuff. You can go to the 1865, see some interesting posts there on Instagram. Sacha Jenkins, thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well.
I like to end with a quote. Today I'm going to Louis Armstrong in tribute. He says there are two kinds of music, the good and the bad. I play the good kind. I love that. Tavis Smiley is up next. He's got a full lineup of conversations for you, as he does every day. If you've missed them, you can always find them wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go on our app. We've got a podcast tab. You could hear all of the conversations you've missed from every single show on KBLA, including mine. History is now, and we're making it together. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Until tomorrow, be well, be blessed. One love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Illinois, an African-American Chicago woman accused of